In his advertisements in the Western Star and Roma Advertiser, he claimed to be the only qualified dentist west of Brisbane. He returned to England with his family in 1901. Arthur's brother, George Lansbury, had also immigrated to Australia in 1884 but stayed only a year and returned to England to immerse himself in radical politics. He helped found and later led the British Labour Party. George Lansbury was best known for championing women's right to vote, hence his nickname, Petticoat George. He was also a Christian socialist, a pacifist, and a passionate believer in unilateral disarmament, an idealistic position that became increasingly unrealistic as the dictators rearmed in the 1930s. George's son Edgar, also a Labour politician, married an Irish actress, Moyna McGill. Their daughter, the actress Angela Lansbury, came out to Sydney in 1958 for the filming of Summer of the 17th Doll, based on Ray Lawler's 1957 play about the lives and loves of Queensland cane cutters. A sign of the times. None of the four leads were Australians, but Angela certainly did a better Australian accent than Ernest Borgnine. Meeting Auntie Angela and playing with her somewhat older children is among my first memories. More than 50 years later we met again when she was in Australia appearing in the stage version of Driving Miss Daisy. Angela and Mum shared a distinctively Lansbury look. Oscar was a star of radio, first as a singer and then as a master of sound effects. He'd performed in music hall as well as opera, and he taught me several music hall numbers, including The Man Who Broke the Bank at Monte Carlo. Every number had its own patter, a line of chat that went before, during, and at the end of the song as part of the entertainment. As a child, I loved visiting Pop Lansbury's studio at 2GB and Aladdin's Cave of Delights. The radio serials were produced live in the studio, and so at the appropriate moment, Oscar might have to fire a gun, bang a drum, drop something in a barrel of water, close a door, break a window, simulate the wind through the trees, or not too quietly creep up a gravel path. It was probably because of this connection with radio drama that Mum began writing radio plays at 16. An early one was a Gothic romance called Ringara, which involved a fierce giant pig ravaging the Australian countryside. Hound of the Baskervilles goes down under, you could say. She later turned that into a novel. There were many others, all dramatic, all romantic, with handsome heroes and swooning but plucky heroines. While studying English and history at Sydney University, Coral supported herself by writing. Two of her university friends I remember coming to dinner when I was very young were Neville Wran and Lionel Murphy. The former would go on to be Premier of New South Wales, and the latter a Senator for New South Wales, Attorney General in the Whitlam government, and finally a High Court judge. Neville and Lionel were firm friends at university. Where Neville was as handsome as any movie actor, Lionel was quite the reverse. His red and bulbous nose later became a cartoonist's delight. Murphy's career was colourful and controversial, but even his harshest critics, and he had many of them, would concede that he was remarkably charming. He could make the dullest dinner companion feel that he or she was the most fascinating person he'd ever met. I brought that up with him once, and he replied, "While men are seduced through their eyes, women are seduced through their ears." At university, Mum and Lionel had dated briefly, but I know very little about her romantic life prior to my birth. On 20 February 1953, Coral made a most improbable marriage to George Edwards, a 67-year-old radio actor and producer. He was known as the man of 1,000 voices, for the way he used to write, produce, and then act all the parts in his own radio plays. But not long after the wedding, Edward's fourth, the groom fell ill, and he died on the 28th of August that year. Decades later, Mum claimed that her fearsome mother had bullied her into this match. It can't have been for financial benefit, as very little of Edward's modest fortune found its way to his young widow, despite the best efforts of her lawyer, Neville Wran. However, the young widow wasn't entirely bereft of companionship. Her marital home was a comfortable apartment at 14 Longworth Avenue, Point Piper, overlooking Lady Martin's Beach. In the back basement of the rather more modest block of flats next door at number 12, then called Kenilworth, there lived an impecunious but devilishly handsome young salesman called Bruce Turnbull. According to Mum, Bruce won her over by swimming up and down the beach pretending to be a porpoise. This may